Yeah,
You mentioned that you're talking about college students, especially video games.
yes, so. Yeah, that's a whole nother 90 minutes. But we have, I'll show at the end, we have a statewide campaign called Change the Game Ohio, which is targeted specifically to parents and teachers of adolescents and specific to video gaming. A lot of people are calling the problem gambling helpline for concerns about video gaming. My father's a adolescent social worker who has tons of young people who are addicted to video games and gambling and works with both of them. He has his GAM endorsement. We would refer, people with gaming to gambling. They absolutely mirror each other in the terms of behaviors. And what you're also seeing is gaming starting to get into gambling, right? So you can put money into video games and buy, spend, trade, gamble, all these types of things. So they're absolutely converging. And the behaviors, the consequences, the impacts would all be the same, and the treatment would look very similar because it's a behavior. Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure. It's starting young, they're grooming, and you don't even have to go to the step of like stealing your mom's credit card or anything, because video games will take any prepaid thing. So if grandma gives, an Amazon card or a Visa prepaid card, but they'll take anything. You give a kid a $30 Best Buy card, they'll take that. They'll take any form of payment. So yeah, you can groom very early. Yeah, and changing real life currency into the video game currency, right? So, I'm playing World of Warcraft, I put in $100 US currency and it becomes 100,000 Bazelli tokens, right? So young people start to completely lose track of what that means, right? And that I have my 100,000 Bazelli tokens to use in World of Warcraft. I totally forget that I put in $100 of my own money, right? And you start to utilize that. Yeah, absolutely. The suicidation piece is big. We talked about it at the beginning, but 1 in 5 or 20% of individuals with a gambling disorder will attempt suicide. Those numbers come from 2 studies from Gamblers Anonymous, but there's actually a growing body of research on gambling and suicide. So you can look into that. It is powerful. These numbers, 77% daily thoughts, almost 40% ideation, so planning, right? Thinking about it, then 20% attempt. And I think what it is really, I get asked, why is that? I think it's just a perfect storm, right? If you look at some of the major factors that influence suicide ideation and attempt, are often depression, debt, unemployment. Who has depression, is unemployed, and has debt? Problem gamblers, right? So like they have all these factors kind of going in together, and oftentimes because it's hidden, which is something that was also mentioned, the family members might not even know this is coming, right? So when it's going to tip, right? When the house is going to go, when it's going to be found out that the college tuition is emptied out, a lot of fear, a lot of guilt, a lot of shame comes out in that person, and this often seems like the answer, right? Or the way out. So very high rates of suicide ideation. You're starting to see that with colleges, which is why we're bringing it up. Student athletes, you're seeing it on the news, there's starting to be a little epidemic here of student athlete suicides. Do we know exactly if it's related to gambling? Maybe, maybe not, we don't know. But there's depression, there's stress, there's anxiety, there's having to live up to being seen as a competitive athlete. So again, what are we setting up our student athletes for when we can gamble upon their daily performance? So to answer that first question, what do we combine problem gambling with? We combine it with anything that is of value to students. If it's mental health, if it's suicidality, financial literacy is becoming a way in. I know a lot of preventionists who are talking to high schools and colleges around financial literacy, and they can add a gambling component into that. I think that's a great strategy. So anything that's of value to them. But where do we start? If we have that strategy of we're going to combine it with anything that they're willing to hear, how do we get in? Who do we work with? We often think of counseling and health centers, great place to start. Sometimes they have barriers, because sometimes the counseling or health centers will say, we got it covered. We know everything about that, right? Academic and athletic programs often seem to be places to start, schools of social work, basketball team, the football team. Sometimes those may have barriers as well. Athletic departments certainly have scholarships and wins and eligibility, right? And recruiting, a lot of other big things to think about. I think when we're talking about thinking outside the box of who else can we work with, there's oftentimes these other areas that maybe get forgotten about. How about the international students? In the study that I did at Case, I don't think I mentioned Case, I wasn't planning on mentioning them, but it's out, cat's out of the bag. Case Western of Cleveland has a large international population. What we found out is the international students were heavily involved in sports betting, and that was back in 16, 17, 18. So, and they often stay right together, right? There's cultural and ethnic inclusion there. So are we working with our international programs? Are we working with our satellite campuses and commuters, right? Sometimes they can maybe be off to the side a little bit. Are they getting resources and information? You all, right? Are we working with alumni? Are we utilizing their knowledge and experiences and working with them as well? And then what I have found to be really successful is working with student life, right? It seems almost too obvious, but student life departments on college campuses are made to improve the life of students, right? It says it in the name of what they are, right? Which is Title IX, Greek life, resident advisors, peer education, student government. This is right. Again, it seems like obvious, but these are departments who are focused on improving the life of students, but they're also students who want to be involved in bettering campus life, right? Student government, RAs, things like that. This is the population we should be working with, and focusing on and utilizing, because peer models, student leadership can be super impactful.
Just moving forward, please don't forget non-traditional students, because I was one for my whole career in school, and you never forget.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Absolutely. Non-traditional should go right up there with, yeah, satellite and commuters, again, students who may be on the periphery. Absolutely. Thank you. So who we should work with is really any student or faculty leaders on campus, right? Some agents of change, students that want to be involved, faculty that want to be involved and have some buy-in and are prepared to right, accept this information, but then also act on it. And really, how do we shape the program is we should shape it in a way where there's buy-in, it's going to be impactful, but really sustainable. Because a one-off program doesn't do very much, right? How can we make these programs, this information, these collaborations sustainable so they're here for an amount of time? And what I think those strategies is not just content knowledge, right? We've got a, what is that, 3? It's the over under on how many times I drop the mic. We don't want to just provide content knowledge, right? Especially when we're talking with students, right? We want to have skill building. I don't want to talk to the basketball team just about what are the warning signs of problem gambling, but I want to give them the skills and confidence to be able to talk to their teammates about it when they recognize their teammate might be struggling. How do you have a conversation? What are the resources available, right? We want to give them skills to have these conversations. And that's not just gambling. I want you to be able to feel comfortable talking to your teammate, classmate, roommate about their mental health. So we can combine them with the areas that they seem of value and give them the skills to be able to act on that knowledge. Consultation. What can we provide to work with, faculty leaders and consult and build programming? Again, holistically, is it involved in recovery programs? Is it in counseling centers? All this kind of stuff. So it goes on and on. Are there partnerships where students are getting, when they graduate their MSW program, they already have the hours, they already have the knowledge and skills to talk to problem gamblers, right? Are we providing these types of incentives and opportunities? All sorts of different things. So I think when we're talking about shaping the message, it's really variable. My message to University of Cincinnati probably shouldn't be the same as my message to Case Western. Certainly, my message to current social work students that you see shouldn't be the same as the basketball team at OSU, right? It's got to be adaptable to them and the audience. And again, it's one of those things that sounds kind of obvious, but oftentimes these programs are copy and paste, and we really need to put in the time and energy to make them adaptable to what the audience wants, allow them to have some control over it, again, based on their values and what they want to learn. That way it creates sustainability. Yeah, Wayne.
I was wondering, and you probably will cover this eventually, but opportunities to work with operators and some of the tools that they offer, like being able to sign up to not let me in your casino and then kind of, are you gonna cover that?
Yeah, a little bit, and we can mention it. I mean, again, I think with collaboration, it's huge, and we actually had some media potentially scheduled for yesterday that got cut off till Monday. But Robert Wamsley, the director of compliance at Hard Rock Casino Cincinnati, was going to be here because we work with our operators and regulators in the state. Again, if we're going to keep gambling, if it's legal here, we want to keep it safe and responsible. It's better to do that together, right? So a really cool activity we just did in March, well, it's still March, throughout March, was our property tours. So again, the 11 brick and mortar venues we have in the state, we partner with all 11 of them for property tours. Did anybody happen to go on one? Greg, were you able to get it? Yeah. So what did you think? Where'd you go and what did you think?
Went to the Hard Rock and Belterra, so, both were completely different.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I mean, they have similar approaches, talk about that. Yeah, their commitment to making sure that people were aware of different things with problem gambling.
Yeah, so I encourage you to keep an eye out for those that we do them every March. She just said it was interesting to hear how they approach responsible gambling, but keep an eye out for those next March because they're really interesting because we work with them. So they draw the veil back and they talk about how they look at, consumers' data and how they, qualify for certain bonuses. But then with that is also how they track their betting. So they can see that someone's maybe going above and beyond what they normally do. They can track patterns, how they train their staff to have conversations about problem gambling, responsible gambling, suicide. Again, so, it's not the greatest example, but there was just a recent death by suicide at Miami Valley Gaming, which is not far from here on the property. So on the way down here, I was in a conversation with the Warren County, their suicide prevention coalition, to talk about how can we partner to give suicide prevention education to the staff at Miami Valley Gaming, because we've done that up north. We've done it with MGM, we've done it with I think Northfield Park and maybe the one in Youngstown, Mahoning Valley, QPR. Anybody here at QPR? Question for Swade, refer. Yeah, so we've given that to venues in this state. So I said, hey, we better get that down to Miami, right? Because one, those staff might need to deal with some things that are coming out of that tragedy, but also how can we better equip them to have conversations, spot the warning signs before that happens. So I think that, this image is just to say, like, listen, a program should have some structure, right? It can't just be, you can't start from scratch with every college you go to. There's got to be some structure. There's got to be a template, but it should be adaptable enough and have some autonomy. So, the School of Social Work, so the basketball team, so the international students, so the non-traditional students, right? It can be adaptable to their values and their needs, right? And flexible to what's going on.
Michael, a question probably more for Greg. Outside of the School of Social Work, what has UC's approach been?
And we'll talk about that in the afternoon session, that there's a lot of collaborators that are already in the room today.
Okay, great,
That I think you'll be pleased to hear who's here.
thank you.
Yeah, and again, there are a few colleges in Ohio that are starting to do this. UC is looking at educating the future treatment providers of America. OU is looking at more prevention-y type stuff, and Miami is doing a lot of research. So there are, there's things happening, which is great, but still, that's three. So I applaud UC and Greg and Jamie and Wayne for getting this going, because this is proactive, right? In 2 or 3 years, you're going to see a lot of this, but this is ground level. This is awesome. And a lot of schools are probably gonna come to PGNO and come to UC to say, you know, can we have what you did, right? It's gonna be templated, right? What that cost will be, I don't know, right? But I don't know. But right, it's great that you guys are doing this and having this work being done. So I'm gonna quickly go over, I just gave those 3 keys. I'm gonna quickly go over like how then this was implemented. So a project that I did. Language disclaimer, these are sororities and fraternities. I asked them what they wanted me to call them. And they said guys and ladies or brothers and sisters. So if I say brothers, if I say ladies, that's because that's how they wanted me to refer to them. But the Culture of Care Fellowship, the Greek Life Program, was to work with fraternities and sororities to assist them in creating a culture of care and balance. So again, how can we care and watch out for each other? We live together, we work together, we play together. We're going to be that front line to know if somebody's struggling. We want to have better tools to deal with that. So it's a partnership between a lot of different agencies. 10-month program where we worked with fraternities and sororities at Case Western Reserve University. The components, we did that all Greek life survey, which I showed you. So we had good data from what was going on with those students. We had them apply. Pretty simple application. Why do you want to get involved? What do you hope to gain? What would you do with this information? And we did this for a number of years, which is good, but unfortunately, due to capacity, we could only do 1 sorority and fraternity each year. So then we did an assessment after we selected a fraternity and sorority. We did an assessment, and this was focus group with all the members. So we did multiple focus groups with all the members because we wanted them to be small so everybody could speak. And then key informant interviews with like the president, vice president, risk manager, some of these other positions in a fraternity or sorority. Anybody Greek here? Yeah? I'm Italian. Actually, that's a joke. I'm not Greek. But right, so there's different positions. So we do key informant interviews with them. And then based on the focus groups and the data and the interviews, we would make a program for them. Again, based on what are their values? What are they going through? What do they want to know? And then it's my job to make the connection to problem gambling, right? Because they're not going to say problem gambling, but I know it's impacting them. I know what's going on in the college. So it's my job to make that connection. So we would build a specific program for them. We would deliver it, and then of course do some evaluation and continued support with that group. To be inclusive, we often think about the social Greek life chapters, right? These are the ones that are on TV and movies, but there are academic sororities and fraternities. There are cultural fraternities and sororities. So we want to make sure they're opened up to them as well. One academic one that we worked with was an academically focused STEM major sorority. Another one was an African-American focused fraternity. So you want to make sure that we're being inclusive and diverse with all the groups we're working with. A list of programs we did: substance use and gambling, effective conversations, decreasing stigma around mental health and medication and treatment, positive and coping mechanisms, self-care and affirmations, and codependency. So we covered a lot of things. Again, this is what they told us they wanted to focus on. What I'm going to give you is an example of one sorority who had very limited awareness around gambling from the focus group. And what they wanted to focus on was codependency, using alcohol as a coping mechanism, and unutilized resources. They had serious binge drinking. In the focus group, when we were talking about alcohol, we said, what would be a warning sign that someone was drinking too much? And their response was hospitalization. So you don't have a drinking problem until you're brought to the hospital, have your stomach pumped. That was the warning sign of maybe it's gotten too much, right? So how can we have a conversation before the hospital, right? Codependency and unutilized resources. That's what they wanted to focus on. So I said, hey, I can combine that with gambling, because gambling has a lot of other impacts besides just finances and just to the person. We told them that a goal should be feeling a sense of responsibility to reach out, before someone's a burden, or intervene before things spin out of control. They had a resource called Watch Care where they could anonymously tell the president that something was going on with somebody. Nobody was using it. So we wanted to talk about the benefits of utilizing that. And then also, they wanted awareness of codependency, healthy boundaries, et cetera, et cetera. A lot going on here. What we were able to find out, and again, because we thought outside the box, because we asked them what they wanted, what was of value, we asked them to submit anonymous scenarios that we could use. This was a real scenario that his sister submitted to us. You notice a sister in your chapter has been withdrawn from the group recently, and she hasn't been attending a class you have together. You see her picking up shifts at the local coffee shop when you know she has classes at that time. You find out her boyfriend has been visiting the casino and losing money. You hear from a friend the boyfriend comes home extremely agitated and can become abusive with words and pushing her out of the way if she confronts him. You keep an eye on her and notice she's spending less and less time at the chapter house and in class, and more time with her boyfriend and working. When we presented this, they were a little hesitant to say how would they react to it. When we were given permission to say that this was real, they were flabbergasted, right? And they wanted to know everything they could about gambling addiction, because one of their sisters was in a codependent and abusive relationship with a problem gambler. So they wanted to know everything about it. What are the warning signs? What are the consequences? How do we have conversations about this so it doesn't happen again, or so we can better help her, right? So we had that conversation. But another activity we did, because again, you don't want to just leave them with content knowledge. You don't want to just come in, hi, I'm Mike, problem games and things, see you later, good luck. You want to leave them with something. So we talked about self-care, right? Because that is an attribute to being in a codependent relationship. What do you want to focus on? Psychological, physical, mental, emotional health, right? So we gave them a bunch of flip chart paper and we said every week at your chapter meeting, write down something you want to focus on that week. It's something that you can hold yourself accountable to, but also your sisters can as well, right? They can get ideas of what you're focusing on. They can ask you, hey, did you go on your run today? Because you said you were going to do that, right? There's a little accountability, a little support. We came back 6 months later, their entire living room was papered with flip charts of things they were doing and circled that were working well for them or whatnot. So it was this really impactful living activity that they were utilizing. And when we asked them, what did you gain from it? This is what they said: increased mindfulness, decreased anxiety and stress, increased sisterhood and friendships, and also increased participation at those chapter meetings. So this was kind of became a gold standard of how we wanted to operate with other chapters. And what was really interesting is we worked with this chapter for 4 years in a row. And we worked with one sister who went, I guess through the ranks all the way to the president. And after the 4th year, I asked her, why was this so successful? Why have you ladies been doing better? Why did you want to keep working with us for 4 years? And that's what she told me. That was the only evaluation that I needed to do. I didn't need her to answer 8 out of 10 questions about problem gambling risks. I said, why was it impactful? And she said, because it was for us, right? Not because it was templated or copy and pasted from working with the Kent State basketball team, because we made it for them, right? So that's what we need to do. We need to collaborate and empower students and other faculty leaders to combine this message with things that are going on campus, right? And another quick one, I'm going to go really through this, but I worked with Slippery Rock University. That's where I'm an alum and where I ran cross country and track. I found out that they developed an esports minor, which a lot of universities are doing. So they invited me to speak. And again, I needed to form this message with what they value, right? So I talked about gaming and its impacts or connections to problem gambling, mental health, lethality, stigma, right? A lot of stigma with gambling and gambling addiction. There's a lot of stigma and, preconceived notions around video gaming and the people who video game and like video games, right? Things like that. So we talked about that. And what was really interesting, super cool, that professor, Dr. Jenny, is adding a problem gambling course to his curriculum. So every student's going to get a course or a class on problem gambling and its connection to gaming. They got a much broader awareness and appreciation of risks with video gaming and gambling. But what was huge was this. There was a master's student who was doing his practicum on toxicity. And toxicity is a term used in the gaming world for foul language, abusive language. It often relates to bullying. What he wanted to do was create, basically an algorithm Because when you're on these video games, there's a toxicity algorithm. So if Wayne starts saying bad language, he can get targeted, right? And red flagged. And if it continues, he can be kicked off or blocked from that game, right? This student was gonna do a project on language associated with suicide ideation and gambling addiction. So when those types of verbs or words come up, that player can get flagged and have resources sent to them. So I thought that was incredible, right? If that comes to fruition, that is a huge outcome of simply talking to students about gaming and gambling, right? Because it's something they value, something they want. I love this quote. I'm not the smartest fellow in the world, but I sure can pick smart colleagues, right? I can't talk to the School of Social Work students. I'm not a social work guy, right? I don't know why I'm here. I'm not a clinician, right? But I can work with Greg. I can work with Dr. Jenny at Slippery Rock. I can work with Greek Life at Case, and we can collaborate and make this message much more impactful when we work together. So I think a few considerations is collaboration, working together, being intentional with our message, having a careful, planful timeline, right? Programs should be adaptable, right? Like a Swiss Army knife. They should be what they need to be for the person who's utilizing it. And also living within our capacity, right? If we go above and beyond, we might not be as successful. Little steps can be really impactful. You know, $15,000, not a lot of money for the University of Cincinnati, right? But it's what PG&O can give UC to start these conversations. And that can really snowball into something really big, right? We can talk about all this a little bit later about, you know, the GAM endorsement, if you do have a chemical dependency licensure, claiming competency within the scope of practice for social workers. We can talk about other fellowship programs. We're going to talk about that a lot actually in professional development in the panel, so we'll skip over that for now. Here's again a lot of the campaigns that we have in Ohio that change the game. One is for video games. We can talk about Time Out Ohio in the panel as well. Wayne mentioned it. It's a voluntary exclusion program where if you know you're having problems, you can ban yourself from our casinos. You can ban yourself from downloading the sports betting apps. So it's a harm reduction technique that hopefully can be utilized. We can talk about all that a little bit more. But I think, you know, it's important to, again, collaborate with everybody, right? Helplines, rape crisis centers, you know, suicide prevention task force, University of Cincinnati, right? There's all sorts of ways in which we can get this message across in a successful way. And I think when we think outside the box and come up with new ways of doing things, we can create buy-in. And buy-in creates capacity, right? Funding, ideas, time, manpower, all this kind of stuff. When you have buy-in, you can then create sustainability, and sustainability is when you get long-term impact. So I think we got 90 seconds for some thoughts. Thank you for letting me share what's going on with sports. Can't believe I did that in 90 minutes. Everything going on in sports gambling in Ohio. Yeah.
Training the employees of how to deal with suicidal ideation.
It's called QPR, which stands for Question, Persuade, Refer. So it's a way to become knowledgeable around the warning signs of suicide, but more so, how can we build the skills and the comfort in being able to have conversations around it?
That employee
What about the employee?
is going to do that?
Well, we do that. So we do that for communities. We do that for schools. I'm saying I would love to do that for the gaming venues. So they can recognize it and have good conversations around when they see them.
Yeah, like that's gonna be the responsibility of an employee.
To have that conversation? Well, I mean, I guess we could talk about that. Do you think it should be? I think if someone's producing a risk behavior, they should also have a responsibility to have a conversation around that risk behavior.
Yeah, with QPR's, like community-based suicide prevention, approach, and the idea behind it is that the more eyes on the community, the better. And so it's not that there are like some employees supposed to be a clinician.
Yeah.
But that, you know, the clinician can't be everywhere all at once, but you know, the employees are there and they know that their patient probably better than anybody.
Mhm.
And so they can sort of raise or, get a signal out that there might be a problem, and then get them to the appropriate. Yeah, or, no, they wouldn't act as a clinician. It's like
Yeah.
the community over just sort of is aware.
Yeah, I guess I didn't mean responsible to then act on it, but responsible to recognize it and help get to resources and, yeah. Yeah, be a first front line, not the end all be all, yeah.
There's similar models of that within a lot of universities.
Mhm.
Where, students, staff, everybody's sort of trained in this.
Yeah, you hear about like catalyst bystander programs, things like that, which are great.